A successful interview is key to solving cases of abuse or neglect involving individuals living with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. Interviewing individuals who may be suffering from abuse or neglect with Alzheimer's or related dementias presents unique challenges that require specialized approaches to ensure effective communication, gather accurate information, and provide appropriate support. Dementia can impair memory, cognition, and communication abilities, making it crucial for interviewers to adopt techniques that accommodate these limitations while respecting the dignity and autonomy of the individual.
Everyone has a right to tell their story. The relevance, the application, and the accuracy we figure out later. Even if 99% of a person's story is not accurate, if 1% of their story is accurate, and there are pieces of information that come from an interview that we can use, it was absolutely worth the interview, and it was worth taking the time to do it.
To have somebody who will listen to you, believe you, and advocate on your behalf is very impactful for a lot of victims and their families. It means a lot to them just knowing that somebody cares, is listening, and is trying to come to some sort of resolution.
It is important to remember that the people you are talking to during these investigations are human. They are family members, they are friends, they are individuals with lives. As an investigator, you are now part of someone's life. Although you may want to gather information as quickly as possible, make sure that the time you are spending as part of their life is as important and essential as it can be. If that means you have to take extra time to establish rapport with someone, then take the extra time. In some cases, an individual with Alzheimer's or dementia may take more time to respond. It is important to understand that this does not mean they lack capacity. As in any interview, patience and respect are important elements of an effective investigation.
Investigators and first responders need to have empathy when they are speaking with a person living with dementia. Help us to feel safe and understood. Building a trusting relationship is so important to the process. When anyone encounters an investigator, it often raises your anxiety level. For someone with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, this anxiety level is heightened because our brains process things slower. When I'm anxious, I find I do not think as clearly or as rationally as I do when I'm calm. It's also important to limit distractions in the environment where you are speaking. Ask if there's a preferred place to speak and where they would feel most comfortable. Keep your questions simple and brief. You should ask questions slowly and make sure that we understand them. And remember, it takes us longer to process information and accurately respond to it. Try not to rush us into responding. Otherwise, we may just tell you what you want to hear.
During the course of this video, we will define Alzheimer's and related dementias and teach you how to listen, our method for conducting successful interviews with individuals living with irreversible cognitive disorders. Anytime there is an allegation of abuse, interviewers should listen and use forensic interview techniques, including building a full profile of the individual before beginning any conversation with them, understanding how they like to communicate, establishing rapport with the individual, and ideally having the entire investigative team involved to avoid re-traumatizing the individual by subjecting them to multiple conversations. As you'll hear throughout this training, a successful interview depends on specifically tailoring your interactions and questions to this population. Building trust is essential for facilitating open communication with the individual, especially those with dementia who may feel confused or anxious. Begin by introducing yourself calmly and respectfully, using simple language and nonverbal cues such as a warm smile and gentle tone of voice. Allow time for the individual to become comfortable and familiar with your presence before proceeding with the interview.
A forensic interview is a structured conversation between two people that's performed in such a way as to elicit the most reliable information from people in the least leading or suggestive manner possible. As interviewers, we can use forensic interview techniques to encourage an individual to narrate and share with us their independent recollections and memories of an experience or experiences.
An interview is not an interrogation, it's a dialogue. Good investigators go into an investigation with an open mind. It is important to prepare, to understand the background, and to know what you're going into. Then use the interview process as a way to gather facts. Investigators need to listen closely so they can ask the proper follow-up questions and change directions based on what the survivor is telling them. Small details are sometimes big things and can change the course of the investigation. What you learn during the interview process may form the direction of any potential criminal case.
Before we go step by step through how to conduct an interview using forensic interview techniques, we first want to take a moment to define Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. Alzheimer's is the most common cause of dementia. Individuals with mild to moderate impairments may be forgetful of details, especially recent events, likely to repeat words and ideas, likely to lose their train of thought, and likely to have difficulty handling money. Alzheimer's disease is considered to be younger onset Alzheimer's if it affects a person under 65. Younger onset can also be referred to as early onset Alzheimer's. Individuals with severe impairments may present with significant memory issues, are often unable to recognize people close to them, and believe they are in a different place and/or time period. Despite these challenges, it's important for investigators to move forward as best they can by listening and incorporating forensic interview techniques.
As an investigator, it is so important for you to prepare. When you've interviewed one person with a neurocognitive disorder, you've interviewed one person with a neurocognitive disorder. Everyone that you interview is different. When you've interviewed them one time, you've interviewed them one time. They can be different depending on things as simple as time of day.
Every investigator should be open-minded, listen, and take their time. Oftentimes, you will get the best information by being slow and purposeful. It isn't effective to bombard people with questions. When you are in the midst of an interview, be comfortable with the silence. Use that time to gather your own thoughts, and then, when the individual is ready to speak, really let them speak.
Approach each case thinking, this could be my brother or my family member. An interviewer should think, how would I want them to be treated if they were a victim? My mantra, and what I teach all new recruits is, start with an open mind and understanding, and make conclusions based on the evidence.
Conducting a successful interview requires you to listen.
As a best practice, it is important that we listen throughout an interview. People living with disabilities, their voices matter. To be prepared to actively listen, investigators should approach every case being as proactive as possible by learning as much as they can about the victim ahead of the interview to ensure they understand their communication abilities and needs. To effectively listen, investigators need to act with integrity, ensuring that in every investigation, they are respecting a victim's autonomy as well as their choices and decisions. Throughout each interview, we need to make sure that the victim knows their voice matters to us. Of course, safety is paramount throughout every investigation, including the safety of the victim and the investigator. Throughout your investigation and interview, always listen for any safety concerns. It is critical that we ensure our own safety and critical that we safeguard the victim's well-being, autonomy, and decision-making when it comes to safety. When we create a safe environment, victims recognize they can share their experiences openly and trust our team to do what is right. Our investigators understand that this process is difficult. We often meet people on the worst days of their lives. A trauma-informed approach to interviewing people living with disabilities recognizes the many emotions victims experience throughout the investigative process. Therefore, it's important that we meet them with sensitivity and support. A trauma-informed approach requires you to actively listen. Recognizing the difficulties and challenges, We need to be empathetic, meeting a victim where they are at, and tailoring an interview to meet an individual's needs. As we listen, we need to understand how victims use assistive devices, and we need to know when to adapt our communication. We need to ensure that in every interview, victims are given as much time as they need to understand and respond. And we are so much more successful when we work with and listen to our network. Here in Massachusetts, we are part of an incredible multidisciplinary team that gives us a network of support. Listen and lean on your network. When you lean on your network, you have a higher chance for a successful outcome, and most importantly, the victim, the survivor benefits.
To put these guiding principles into action, we want to walk you through a mock interview involving an individual who may have been the victim of financial exploitation. Here are the details. A credit union manager named Mrs. Jordan contacts Protective Services because she believes a client named Mrs. Braxton is being pressured to write checks to her son and let her son take over her finances. According to Mrs. Jordan, the son cashed $5,000 in checks written by his mother over 11 days, a pattern that has been going on for the past year. Mrs. Jordan says Mrs. Braxton doesn't often come into the bank, but when she does, she appears confused. On one occasion, not remembering if she had an account or was at the right location. Mrs. Braxton's son will sometimes come with her and does all the talking. The first thing you must do as an investigator is learn. This means preparing proactively to conduct an effective interview and being ready for whatever might come your way. Prior to the meeting, you will likely have little or no idea the individual you're talking to is living with Alzheimer's or related dementia. So it's important to not treat the individual as having a cognitive issue, unless your conversation with them reveals concerns about their decision-making capacity, or if you have information from their caregiver about their cognitive decline.
As an investigator, you are sometimes the first person to realize that an individual is suffering from a cognitive impairment. And if they don't yet have a support system in place, or people who are close to them in their lives, you as the investigator may be the only bridge helping to ensure someone receives the help they may need.
It is extremely important to understand how we are dealing with our diagnosis and what stage of the disease we are in. For me personally, it took me quite a while to even accept my diagnosis. My mind was racing, trying to process how this disease will impact myself and my family. There was some feeling of social isolation as my friends and family, they stayed busy working, and that lack of social community was hard. Some people never accept their diagnosis. As an investigator, if you speak with somebody who hasn't yet accepted their diagnosis, they may have a difficult time truthfully answering questions about challenges related to their dementia. It is also critical to understand if they are in the early, middle, or late stages of their disease. This will impact the type of questions you should ask and their ability to understand and respond to your interview questions.
It's also key to evaluate disclosures objectively and to put aside any preconceived notions you have about individuals, including that they are all forgetful. Even someone with advanced cognitive decline may be able to remember events if given the opportunity. Before meeting the alleged victim, you'll want to plan the interview at a time of day that may be best for the interviewee. Certain times of day may be better for an individual with Alzheimer's, such as the morning, and plan for more time than normal to conduct the interview.
Hi, Mrs. Braxton. My name's Phil Smith. I'm with South Shore Elder Services. May I sit with you today?
Yes, of course.
When you arrive, make sure the individual is comfortable. This may mean checking to make sure their basic needs have been met. For example, making sure water is available during the interview. Wherever the interview is being conducted, do your best to eliminate all distractions. If you are conducting the interview at the individual's home, this means asking the individual to turn off a TV or radio. Ensure that the interview environment is quiet. well lit, and free from distractions that may cause agitation or distress. Arrange seating in a way that promotes eye contact and facilitates engagement while respecting the individual's space. Offer reassurance and support throughout the interview process, emphasizing confidentiality.
Most people you interview with Alzheimer's or related dementias benefit from less stimulation, so look to speak with them in a room with less background noise and appropriate lighting. Be aware of how many words you're using when you ask questions. The less words and more easily understandable, the better.
Remember to face the person and to sit at eye level. Don't tower over them. Be warm and friendly. Ask open-ended questions. Don't shout or yell. Take breaks whenever needed. And don't talk down or treat the individual as a child. Finally, introduce yourself and develop a rapport to decrease anxiety. This is crucial to your overall goal of acting with integrity. Demonstrate your integrity by being honest, dependable, and forthcoming throughout the interview, and always follow through with any commitments.
Investigators should always explain what is happening, even if the adult doesn't understand or is confused. Just because a person may have a cognitive impairment does not mean they shouldn't be listened to or understand what is happening. We still want them to be spoken to and respected. That may mean repeating what you said a few times or even rephrasing it. You might need to make multiple visits, but the adult has the right to know what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Ensuring that you're making someone comfortable during an interview is so important and starts with building rapport. In the early stages of dementia, and even in the advanced stages, there can be some mistrust going into the conversation. So it's important to take time to build a connection before going into questions that often cause resistance or fear. Are you able to establish any sort of connection with an already trusted party or partner, or maybe a personal connection between the two of you? Is there a comfort item that the person could benefit from, such as a comfort snack or drink? We must be mindful of how succinctly we ask a question, and then try to repeat the question throughout the discussion.
Thank you for allowing me to speak with you. It's nice to meet you today.
Thank you for coming by.
As I mentioned, my name is Phil Smith. I'm an investigator with the local Protective Service Agency. How would you prefer I address you as we are here talking today?
You can call me Gail.
I'm looking forward to talking to you. Before we get started, I'd like to get to know you a little bit better. Tell me about yourself.
Well, I like to play cards during the week and watch college basketball on weekends.
If an open-ended question that begins with, "Tell me about," is unsuccessful, try asking a more direct and still open-ended question like, "What do you enjoy doing in your free time?" Engage the individual in conversation by asking open-ended questions that encourage elaboration and reflection, such as, "Tell me more about what happened," or "How did that make you feel?" Practice active listening by maintaining eye contact, nodding attentively, and acknowledging their responses with empathy and understanding. Avoid interrupting or rushing the conversation. Allow the individual to express themselves at their own pace.
It's really important to spend time with the person you're interviewing. Sometimes you'll encounter people who have dementia or Alzheimer's who mask very well. At first, they might be able to go through all the questioning, but if you spend enough time with them and listen to what they're saying, you might hear a lot of repetition. Give the person enough time to really experience the process when memory deficits might be present.
It's good practice to always corroborate what you believe the victim has stated and to allow the victim to correct you if they believe that you heard something incorrectly during an interview.
You said that you like to play cards with your friends. Tell me more about that.
Well, I play gin rummy with a few of my old high school friends that I've stayed in touch with over the years. We usually play on Sunday afternoons.
That sounds like fun. Where do you usually play gin rummy with your friends?
We play down at the community center when I can get there.
Taking the time to build a cordial and trusting relationship with the individual is crucial to laying the groundwork for the allegation portion of the interview, and should continue until it is clear the individual is comfortable talking with you. During this time, you'll want to prioritize safety. Safety encompasses a lot of things, including safety of the interviewee, safety of the interviewer, safety of the home, as well as protective service needs of the victim. Safety begins with the report of abuse and continues throughout your interview and investigation. If you are conducting your interview in the individual's home, make sure the son, the alleged abuser, doesn't interfere with the interview. Scan the home for access and egress locations and be aware of your surroundings. Also, ensure the individual is prepared to talk and remind them that it's okay not to guess the answer to the question and that they should not be afraid to say they don't understand a question or correct a mistake on the part of an interviewer. If you become aware of any safety needs of the individual during the interview, make sure to begin to address protective service options before the conclusion of your interview.
Safety for your interviewee and yourself is incredibly important. When you're going to make an unannounced visit, make sure that your supervisors are aware of where you're going and when you are going to make that visit. In some cases, it might also be appropriate to alert the local police that you're making a visit to.
Mrs. Braxton, there's some things I always tell people when I talk to them. I'm going to be asking some questions today, and if you don't know the answer, tell me you don't know. I don't want you to guess.
That makes sense.
And if I ask you a question that's confusing or doesn't make sense to you, please just tell me. I'll try to make the question more clear. I can also repeat any questions if that helps.
That's very helpful, thank you.
If I should get something wrong, please correct me. My job is to listen to you and understand everything that you tell me. If I ask a question that you don't want to answer, it's perfectly fine to let me know. We will only discuss what you wanted to discuss. But if at any point you want to go back to a topic because you remembered another detail, don't hesitate to stop me and we'll discuss it.
I will. Is this going to take long? I have a busy day today.
Well, before we keep going, I'd like to check in, just see how you feel about talking with me.
I feel fine, but this is a lot of information you're giving me.
As the interview proceeds to the allegations at hand, it's important to use a trauma and empathy-informed approach to interviewing. You'll want to use open-ended questions and present them in a way that doesn't seem interrogative in nature. The individual is the expert in their experiences. The goal should be to gather reliable information from the individual the best way they can remember it. Communicate information in a clear, concise manner, avoiding jargon, abstract concepts, or complex instructions that may confuse or overwhelm the individual. Use simple sentences, familiar words, and visual aids if necessary to enhance understanding and facilitate recall. Encourage the individual to express themselves in their own words, validating their experiences and feelings without judgment. Be prepared to repeat information or questions if the individual's short-term memory is impacted. Reassure them that they are not alone and that help is available to support them through difficult times. Respect their autonomy and decision-making capacity, offering choices and options whenever possible to empower them in the interview process.
A trauma-informed approach means, as investigators, we understand that our words and actions can trigger or activate the feelings, emotions, and the psychological or sometimes physical reactions associated with trauma.
Every single time I speak with someone, I have to consider the circumstances. For example, how can I tell someone who's living with dementia that their very good friend has been stealing at least $500 a month from them? I know they're not going to remember the first time we had the conversation. You can remind them that you've previously spoken, and you want to let them know that they were upset or that they might be surprised about the information that you're about to discuss with them. Every single time you speak with someone, though, it's going to be different. And you need to gauge that person's ability to self-manage the information. And then you work with that. Just because somebody doesn't remember one moment to the next, it does not mean that they don't have the ability to process certain things or understand in that moment.
Thank you for telling me more about yourself. Do you know the reason I'm here today?
No. Where were you from again?
I'm from your local protective service agency. We received a referral, and there are concerns that some money from your bank account has been taken. Tell me about that.
I think the bank manager from my bank called to tell me that someone had cashed a few checks. I thought they'd made a mistake because, aside from my electric bill, I don't write many checks.
Tell me more about the phone call from the bank.
I didn't really understand what they were trying to tell me, but like I said, I don't write many checks. I was hoping it was some sort of a mistake. Did someone write checks from my account that I don't know?
Well, that's what I'm here to look into. Does anybody else have access to your accounts?
No, I don't think so. I'm not sure.
What did the bank manager say about the person that cashed the checks?
If I recall, they said my son cashed the checks. That's ridiculous. He has a job and he always comes to help me, whether it's with dinner or to run errands.
What's your son's job?
I don't remember where he works. Since he was a boy, he wanted to be a truck driver. I can't keep up with all of his jobs. But I don't know why you keep bringing him up. It seems you and the bank want to place blame on him when he's done nothing wrong. I don't think he would steal from me.
I hear what you're saying. Do you want to take a break?
I would like to stop to drink some water. My mouth is dry.
At times, barriers can arise that require you to put the individual at ease and redirect the conversation. Sometimes this can be accomplished by using the recycling funnel method, which allows for the use of multiple choice and yes/no questions. Generally, these are considered the least reliable questions, but they can be used as long as you cycle back to more open-ended questions. It's important to stay calm and neutral. Showing agitation will only add additional roadblocks. Keep in mind that this method might not always work for individuals with Alzheimer's due to short-term memory loss and challenges with information processing. Offer emotional support and reassurance throughout the interview, acknowledging the distressing nature of discussing abuse and its consequences.
A really good investigator can use every tool in their toolbox during one interview and do it seamlessly. So, especially for individuals with cognitive impairment, there may be a lot of repetitive questions, a lot of open-ended questions, and a lot of coming back to the first question because the person got confused or agitated. It's important to be fluid.
Interview questions may cause some confusion or anxiety. In that case, you may notice a change in behaviors, ability to communicate effectively, or orientation changes. In those moments of confusion, disorientation, or anxiety, we don't recommend trying to reorient them. Instead, you might need to shift to help de-escalate or redirect the person. You might find a way to join the person in their reality by validating the emotion that is underneath a statement. For example, if they say, "I need to get to a medical appointment," you might need to look underneath that and recognize that they're probably feeling anxious or scared and reassure them. You could then say something like, "I know you're worried about that appointment. I talked with your aide and that appointment is rescheduled, so you don't have to worry about it." And now you've redirected them and have met them in their reality.
Do you want to continue talking?
I guess. I'm getting tired.
I'm here to help get to the bottom of what's happening. Do you have any questions?
No, thank you. But I don't think it was my son.
Is it okay if we continue talking?
Yes.
When were you last at the bank?
I don't remember. I don't go that often, maybe once a month to get some cash for groceries, or if my son reminds me that I need something.
What kind of things does your son remind you that you need?
I don't know, he just reminds me that I need to pay things and then he takes care of it.
Can you tell me more about what you mean when you say he takes care of it?
He gets the cash or a check and pays things that need to be paid.
Do you know what he's paying for you?
My bills.
Tell me which bills?
He takes care of it all. Why are you asking all these questions?
I want to help you get to the bottom of what's going on in the call we received from the bank. Is it okay if I ask a couple more questions?
I guess. But I don't think my son has anything to do with the call from the bank.
Okay, I'm just trying to get to know about you and your situation. Tell me a little bit more about your son.
He's a good man. He works hard, but the town cut his hours and he's had to take on a second job to care for his family.
Does he have money issues?
I don't want to talk about him. I don't want to get him in trouble.
Have you ever given your son any money when he has needed or asked for it?
I don't know. He's my son. Sometimes he told me I owed him money or something, and I don't always remember. I just don't want to argue with him. I need him. Like I said, I don't want to get him in trouble.
Tell me more about not wanting to get him in trouble.
Oh, no. I'm afraid I've said too much. I don't want to go to a nursing home.
We're here to help you and protect you and your autonomy, Mrs. Braxton. Tell me more about not wanting to go to the nursing home.
If I don't let him handle my finances, then he might stop helping me altogether. And I just can't do it on my own anymore. I forget things sometimes. I do remember that he said I might have to sell the house to pay everything and go to a nursing home. It's easier just to let him do what he wants.
At this point, it's time to reference your network. Reassure the interviewee about next steps and let them know about the multidisciplinary team that can be assembled to help. Explain that there are people, agencies, and services that can support her in her own home and help her with her finances.
Collaboration is so important when we are working with this population. We have a variety of partners who can address a host of needs, and our team is always available to consult if an investigator gets stuck. One thing to remember as you're finishing an interview and thinking about what support systems you are leaving behind. You'll need to think about what will happen after the interview and who, if anyone, in the victim's life can lend support. These are hard conversations to have, and if you aren't sure where to go next or who to turn to, talk to your network because somebody else has probably had a similar case and can help you out.
Interviewing abuse victims with dementia requires you to listen and demonstrate compassion, patience, and understanding to facilitate effective communication and support. By adopting sensitive and empathetic approaches, interviewers can empower individuals to share their experiences, access resources, and seek assistance in addressing abuse and safeguarding their well-being. Through respectful engagement and validation of their experiences, we can uphold the dignity and rights of individuals with dementia and work towards creating a safer and more inclusive society for all.
Dementia does not just happen to people over age 65. People in their 30s, 40s, and 50s can also experience dementia. And while no two people with dementia are alike, many experience wide variations in our abilities, strengths, and needs for support. Individuals with dementia have both good days and bad days, which can vary from morning to afternoon or to evening. You should always ask a person with dementia whether a particular day or time of day is best to talk to them, or if they're having a good or bad day. Conditions may range from a person being at their best to a person experiencing what many refer to as brain fog. And some days, a person's cognitive reserve may even be completely depleted.
Gail, thank you so much for talking with me today. I want to assure you that we'll be investigating this and we will do everything we can to help you. We have agencies and a network that are here to help you as this process unfolds. Here's my card. Please don't hesitate to contact me with any questions.
Thank you, Phil. I don't want my son to get in trouble. He's just trying to help. I just want to make sure that my bills are paid and that I can stay in my home.
These interviews can be challenging, especially when the victim is worried about their autonomy.
You can have a successful investigation, and the person you're working with might not be ready or willing to accept either a service plan or ongoing services. We always want what is best for the people we are working with, but some people are not ready to make changes or take that next step. They still have the right to make their own decisions, and we as investigators need to reframe what success might look like in each different situation.
Keep in mind, throughout your conversation and your line of questioning, that you are probably going to be leaving this older adult at home alone with everything you just talked about. There might not be anyone who can pick up the aftermath of your conversation. We are oftentimes helping someone who has been independent for a long time. Even if they do have Alzheimer's or dementia, our goal is still to keep them at home. So you need to know what services we can put in place to keep them comfortable in their own environment that won't increase their confusion. If you move someone suddenly into a nursing home or even an assisted living, you're changing their environment and can quicken the process of how confused they can get.
The listen method lays the groundwork for an interview style that elicits information and protects the victim. Therefore, it is important to learn about the case and proactively prepare for your interview. Use integrity and ensure the person you're interviewing knows that they are being heard. Prioritize safety and safeguard the well-being of individuals and their autonomy. Use a trauma-informed approach. Employ empathy tailored to the individual's needs. And be sure to remember your network and that you are part of a multidisciplinary team that is knowledgeable and there to help. For more information on how to interview individuals living with Alzheimer's disease or related dementias, visit the Executive Office of Aging and Independence website. This video was produced by the Massachusetts Executive Office of Aging and Independence and the Disabled Persons Protection Commission, in partnership with the Building Partnerships for the Protection of Persons with Disabilities and Older Adults Initiative, BPI, Melwood Global, and the Model Consulting Group. This project was supported by the Administration for Community Living, ACL, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, as part of a financial assistance award totaling $2,547,279.08, with 100% funding by ACL and HHS. The contents are those of the authors and do not necessarily represent the official views of, nor an endorsement by, ACL, HHS, or the U.S. government. Thank you so much for watching.